Okay. So is your husband calming down a little bit?
Well, so after that, he got tied up in some things, and I actually got a chance to be alone for a couple days, and went ahead and secured an apartment that I'm going to move into. I told him over the weekend about it, so he is aware that we are separating. And that we're going to go to counseling to work on the marriage.
I am so happy to hear that.
Yes.
Good.
So that, I had to move kind of quick, but because I knew how he is, and I had to so I got that done. And
how do you feel?
I feel really good about it.
Mm-hmm.
So yes. That is awesome because I realized that I absolutely had to come from that space of non-codependence, and if that was my issue, I was going to cut that out.
Yeah,
so,
and to where you have that autonomy. It's like I said, your intention is to work on the marriage. And his issue is that he's making it all about him. Again, codependency crap.
Right.
So you got to give him a chance to kind of come out of it too. He just doesn't see that. He's paranoid, thinking we're all out to eat. Yeah, exactly. And that's part of getting out of it. You can't expect him to just go.
I can't hold his hand through it, so he's gonna have to go through it, but also to kind of hold space for him to.
Yeah.
Because he definitely, I would say, even this morning, because I just told him on Monday night. So he's processing it, and I was worried actually when I first told him that he may not even try to not give any financial support and really be argumentative, but he did come and he was okay with that, and we settled on an amount and all that kind of stuff. So I was really impressed with that. And that was yesterday. And then today, I think, is when he's starting to almost get that sense of, not knowing up from down. He's really confused right now. Yeah. Because it's all settling in that this is really happening.
He could just believe what you say. It would be pretty easy if he would just believe you.
I told him that he basically needs to trust the journey. That's what I told him. I was like, you just have to trust the journey, and...
Did you talk to him about the codependency?
Yes. And I told him that I have to give him space, from my own perspective. If he wants to continue to be that way, I totally allow that. So until we get to that place where he understands and then makes a conscious choice of whether he, wants to go do that with somebody else or do something different with me or whatever, but we still have to go through that counseling. So he's struggling. He's been through a bad divorce and child fighting over children or a child with his ex. So he's got, I think, a lot of his own baggage coming up, which he needs to
address. Anyway. Yeah. I think it's so awesome that you guys are going to go to marriage counseling too, because he thinks the hard part is where I'm directing you in this for your own recovery is he thinks I'm brainwashing you. He thinks I'm feeding information.
Yeah,
so
he still thinks that he's still blaming you a lot.
That's fine. He can do that. That's fine. I'm okay with that. Because I think that's understandable because he thinks you're weak and you're suck and you're easily manipulated, right? So therefore, I must be feeding this information in your head. You're just blindly believing me. Okay, yeah, that's fine. He can think that. I think when you guys get with a counselor and you start talking about the codependency, maybe then he'll understand it. But right now, all he knows is his wife is drastically changing, making these choices, and the only thing he can pinpoint where these shifts are coming from is when you started working with me. Even though when we were on the phone together, he was like, oh my God, she's making so many improvements. I just want to thank you.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Definitely immediately.
Is he demanding that you stop talking to me?
He has not done that yet, and I think he knows better, because I think he knows that if he says kind of the wrong thing right now, he kind of gets that it would just be, digging himself further down. So, and then even thought with the way he handled when I told him about the apartment, is I think, he could have chosen to kind of freak out or blow up or whatever and argue, but he got a chance to think on it overnight, and then the next day he understood, he was mature. So
good. Oh my God. Well, I'm really happy for you and what's going on. How does it feel? Does it feel like good to you?
What's really cool is that once I really started to find that place inside of me, I can go there and balance myself out if I start feeling really fearful. And I literally can just, sit in that place and be like, I'm okay. I'm doing what I know is right, so therefore I'm on the right path. And so I feel that internal guidance system starting to kick in.
Right. It feels good because I know for me it was like, I know my integrity is good here. There's nothing malicious. I'm not a victim. I'm not blaming anybody. I just need to work on myself and what's right for me. It's like, I need to preserve my reality here. And I don't mean harm. And my integrity is good. Again, it's like, you don't necessarily want to divorce it. That's not what this is about. Even if he's making it about that, where you're aligned, right?
Right. Yeah,
and that you can use.
Yeah. That's good for everyone, so there's,
You can rely on that. And that's where you go in, at least for me, that's kind of where I in the beginning for me, I had to go into that space and go, you know what? If I go back into pleasing what someone else's needs are, how does that feel? How does that feel to you when you think about that? I have to do this to make him happy. How does that feel?
Well, as soon as I think that, I know I'm cutting off my own voice, and that immediately sets my body into, my stomach starts to twist, I can feel how bad it feels.
Yeah, you feel like
I'm getting so in touch with myself, I can feel it on a visceral level.
Yeah. Now, do you recognize that sense of the walls closing in is what you've been living in?
Yes.
And you can't do it anymore. Yeah. So now you can actually see what that is. It's this need to please someone else's needs. At the same time, you are conflicting with yours. So you're surrendering your needs to please someone else's. And so you end up...
Right. And I can see how I'm lying at that point, because I'm saying I'm fine with powering through. That's what I'm physically saying, when deep down there's a whole other story. So you end up being so wishy-washy, because I had started getting towards the last week or so before I made this decision, so wishy-washy that it would drive anybody crazy to be with me in that state of going back and forth. So I had to pick. But I had to really make that a firm place to me, that I was only going to speak from that place of authenticity. So, and to be fair to others, I was like, oh wow, I'm victimizing other people by not, I started to recognize how that was also terrible for the other.
Well, yeah, and other people just assume too that when you make decisions that you're making it from what works within you. They're not aware that you're repressing truth and within yourself and accommodating to their needs. They assume that you're agreeing because you feel you're okay with it. If they knew that deep down you're not, they wouldn't sit well with that. And if they do sit well with that, now you have problems. Correct. So you haven't even given your husband the chance.
Right.
To.
And I did explain that to him.
So did I.
Yeah.
So did I. I just want you to know I explained that to him. And I just don't know if anything in that conversation absorbed, but he'll figure it out. And that's okay. It's no big deal. I'm just really proud that you're doing what you feel is right for you. That's awesome.
Oh, and you know what else was really interesting is, and it just I guess it was coincidental or whatever, but I had both my sister, who I thought had a perfect marriage, and a friend of mine, both all of a sudden were opening up to me, And it was like I was able to share a little bit of what I learned, but I also, it was like uncovering when you think that this other person has everything so perfect. Because I can see how my sister and I, of course, grew up in the same environment, and she's almost worse than I am with this ideal of perfection. And so her journey is going to be like really rough because she's about to let everybody know what's going on for her. And it was just funny how it coincided right when I was finding that strength within myself of getting this new redefining of relationships with family, and I was like, wow, that's interesting that kind of happened at the same time.
Well, if you're opening up about it, you're kind of allowing others to be real themselves. People become more comfortable with the truth with others they feel safe with. And if you're opening up and showing signs of vulnerability, but also humility to where you're okay talking about it, it kind of opens up the space for others to connect with themselves that way.
Well, and it was funny because my sister and I, she lives across like the U.S., and so we don't actually talk as much as just because of, I guess, having busy lives. But but she told me she was like praying for somebody to talk to, and we happened to have like a text message thing, and then it was like a phone call, and then all of a sudden, so it was really funny how how even. We hadn't had communication, but still, I guess it was drawn to happen that way.
I'm excited. I honestly, how have you been in general in terms of how do you?
I can't hear you.
I'm thinking. I stopped talking just to think of what I was trying to say. Is how do you feel in general about where you're at?
I feel at peace knowing that I am going to go through whatever I'm going to go through, and that I don't have to know every step. I just have to stay committed to myself.
No.
So, and then
how does it feel do you feel that in any way you'll ever go back to that old way of being?
Oh, the old way? Never.
Right? That has to feel so good. That has to feel so flipping good. I say that because of my own experience going, I'll never go back to that way of being. I don't have to change my environment so much. Like I didn't have to leave. I did leave my husband, but I don't have to not commit to him. I don't have to do, I can exist where I'm at in this. And fortunately for me, my issues were really within me. And my husband was just kind of a side aspect. He wasn't a direct tie to my issues. It was more towards the religion of my parents and my family. So it was much easier for me to leave him, even though it did require that I have the willingness for him to have his own thoughts about it and to want to leave me. I had to be okay with his freedom to do what he wanted to do as soon as I kind of opened up about my needs to take care of myself. And he gave me that grace, but the awareness that I would never return, I would never, ever sacrifice myself again for someone else's benefit was so, it was that was the most empowering life source. It was an amazing sense of life that I actually gave to myself. And knowing too that you have good integrity, like you're not taking that and trying to break up a family. I mean, it's just it's so ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, no, that's not it. It's really just this sense of like, I am taking care of my personal life. And ultimately, once you kind of get that secured, you're going to be such an amazing person for people to have a relationship with, because now it's authentic. It's not needy. It isn't codependent. It isn't with strings attached. You won't have the same fear clutchingness with your kids. Controllingness is going to be gone. More open-mindedness. It's going to be a lot more easy and relaxed and less toxic.
Yeah. And Definitely. I even told him, I was like, I was going so far downhill, I wasn't a good mother anymore. I was just, everything was sliding so far down. I was like, I have to do this. So, but yeah, and I think part of that freedom is still in the future. Like, as this kind of ripples out.
Well, you're
makes big changes, but
you're currently doing it. It's not in the future. Yeah. You're doing what you're going to need to do for the rest of your life right now. So this type of not saying that you have to be separated your whole life. I'm just saying this. You're getting used to telling the truth. You're getting used to actually saying that doesn't work for me. Letting them deal with the backlash of it. Right? Let him have some problems. Let him figure out how to deal with his own insecurities. Let him take that responsibility. And again, when you're in a codependent relationship, the person that he's going to feel abandonment. He's going to, because clearly that's his positionality around it. That's his story around it. He's going to have to get help. Hopefully, have you found a good marriage counselor that can help him not become the victim in the triad, the codependency triangle, where he now becomes the victim?
We did find somebody. We have to get childcare and everything, and so, but actually this week or next week soon we're going to start that.
Did you find someone that specializes in codependency?
I made sure that was a requirement.
I am so glad, because he might not like this person.
Right.
Just saying, because they're going to say some...
tried to bring it to a different counselor who was very sympathetic to our story. Like, oh, you guys just need to go out on dates more.
Oh, yes.
That's all we need, right?
You just need to feel beautiful, Melanie. You just need to feel beautiful. And that's what this is about.
Oh, man. No, it's like, believe me, he brings me plenty roses already. I get all sorts of schmooze with lobster dinners, but I know who's really for dinner. Me. Right?
It's true. Well, and
he's telling him that. It's the cat and mouse game, and I've got the cheese, and I'm like, I'm not going to keep going for the cheese because I don't want to play the cat and mouse game.
No, and he shouldn't have to take you out to dinner like this. He shouldn't be doing all that. He shouldn't. This should be like, go back to the fundamentals of relationships. It shouldn't be like this. You don't need it. Make sure you let him know that. I don't need all this. This is, to me, is the stuff that's not real. It's superficial. It's too much. Because in his mind, he's literally going to start resenting the fact that he thinks that you're this needy.
Yeah. I'm glad you told me that, because he does. He keeps buying me all these gifts and everything.
Tell him to stop, because he's starting to connect. If you don't, it's not rejecting it. You can be grateful. You can be like, I understand that but I don't want you to develop this idea that I need this for us to get along. I don't. It's like as simple as going for a walk, sitting next to, just going and just being together at a park, sitting at a park bench and talking to each other. It doesn't have to be this way. This is too much. I don't need it. I don't need that. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a friend. I'm looking for someone.
I didn't know how to say that because I don't want to reject him because he's like, out me with the flowers or a new necklace or something that he had bought. And it's like,
you can be kind and again, don't reject, but say, you know what, honey, I really am nervous that I don't want you to think that I am wanting to work on our marriage because of this. I want to work on our marriage because I feel like it's been toxic and dysfunctional, or find a way to say it where he's not going to get butthurt,
Right, yeah.
To where, you really don't want to redevelop a relationship with him thinking that you're going to leave if he doesn't buy you shit. This isn't about buying you stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I don't want him to think that. I didn't know what exactly to tell him so because I'm not trying to hurt his feelings.
Well, it might be that you're...
my wife. I want to buy you my wife.
Well, if that's what he wants to do, that's fine. Just let him know, though, that these things are sweet and it could be his love language, but just let him know. Just let him know you want to make sure that you relate to each other isn't necessarily like you love him even if he didn't buy you anything. That you're committed to him even if you were dirt poor and couldn't afford any of this.
Yeah. And I have tried to tell him a long time ago that, but I'll have to remind him. So, yeah.
How is your, on like the third, fourth priority down, how's your eating? Body image stuff.
Yeah, I do want to work on it. Like, I want to eventually get to the place where we can talk about, like, health and just getting balanced with that. I really am looking forward to getting kind of things settled so that I can go do some movement. I really feel called to, like, even do capoeira again, something like that.
Yeah, that's cool. So do you just not have time or energy right now?
Well, I have to pack, and then I have to, and the other thing, capoeira is a little bit intense, so I'd probably have to train at least a little bit so I don't injure myself. Yeah. Because it's pretty heavy on the...
okay, so let's do something that's within reach. So that's kind of far-reaching.
Or even flamenco.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, you can just sign up for a class. All you got to do is find a schedule.
Yeah, so I'm going to do that, and also just need to get kind of childcare situated. So I saw, kind of caught my eye, like the area in Florida I live has a lot of, like, science-y things, like a sea turtle conservation center or things like that. So I wasn't sure if maybe I could find a part-time job. Possibly.
That would be cool.
A pretty cool place. So
yeah, that would be definite.
amazing.
Yeah, that would be a definite priority, number 1 or 2.
Yeah, because I do need to get some kind of part-time at least would actually probably work with the scheduling. So I just have to get all the childcare stuff situated after I move.
Okay, well here's the good news: the fact that you're aware that you want to be more active and you want to, and that you're not going to have an issue.
Yeah.
That's not a problem. You're consciously aware and actually feel like, are you looking forward to where you actually have a schedule where you can go to a dancing class?
Yeah,
so you're not going to have a problem with that.
I have to push forward with a little bit. I definitely, by being isolated so long, had developed a little bit, although I know it's not my nature, to be, I don't want to say antisocial, but a little bit socially shy. And I think that definitely developed over years of being in a box as a housewife, like, not really, I stopped getting out as much, so... But I think I can push through that, and it's probably going to be pretty fun.
Well, I can already tell. So everything you're bringing up right now, you do not need my help with. You're clearly doing great there.
Okay.
Don't have an issue there.
Okay.
That'll happen as you feel, and that's kind of how, again, this is like how our brains work, how our psychology works. Your brain is wired to prioritize your survival needs before the superficial stuff. And so your mind going towards, I need to get moved, I have to get my house settled. That's like getting my nest. That's the second hierarchy of need, which is your home, your environmental safety and security. Once you have those, all secure, then our minds go to the peripheral stuff that's extra. Like, I want to take a dancing class. Those are things that you have energy for and your mind can open to when you feel that your space is secure.
Yeah. And the other thing that I never really got a chance to do, which is I've always had other people help manage the house, basically. So I wanted him to give me a set amount and there to be a clear boundary that I'm taking care of the household finances in the house, and not where he's going to just come in with all of his money and basically just pay all the bills or whatever. So I had to, because that's how he would then basically go straight back into a similar situation. So I let him know that this place was mine. I'd like to go out, but not really. There's no sleepovers here. I want to set amount. I'm going to manage the household myself. And that's actually a big step for me.
Oh my God, you are kicking ass.
I was like, I can't go back to the same situation because I already know how that's going to go.
No, having your independence is...
Money and stuff.
He has no freaking clue how much better your relationship is about to get with him. It is about to get so much better. He just needs to get over himself.
Yeah, he's starting, even today, this morning, I started to really see him get into, I don't want to say a spiral, but a really, not know up from down space, because it's taking his brain a little bit of processing of everything that's happening, and then I really saw that kind of fear kicking, because he knows, it's for real. This week is...
Yeah, well, the problem is he just is so stuck in his own way of thinking. He has no idea there's other ways to think out there. There's a completely different way to be. Codependency isn't that's not how you relate to people all the time. There's people that don't relate that way. He has no idea there's another way to be. And if he really loves you, truly, truly loves you, and I want to continue to, he will get beyond his own survival needs, his own ego, his own self-preservation to give you this chance. If he can't, he never really loved you anyways. It was really about him taking ownership of you. And from day
one, our relationship was kind of like that. So I don't know 100% how he is or isn't going to be, because he may very well be very happy on how he is and want to go. So I always want to keep that in my mind, that we never, ever had a relationship that was healthy.
Yeah, or actually loving, where it was correct. Yeah. It was always codependent, which means there's strings attached to everything. It's always this and that, that and this and that. It's never just is. So I think what's going to be really important with this therapist that you guys are going to see, especially if they specialize in codependency, is she's going to be able, or he is going to be able to see and understand where he's coming from that codependency triangle. And he's going to get feedback that's going to be very reminiscent of what I talked to him about, what you've been talking about. He might not like that, but if he can get educated, if he can educate himself and it can get in, it will help him relax. But it's not your job to do that, other than just tell him how much you love him and care about him and want to be with him at some point. It just can't be under the same environment. You can't bring in your own personal shit anymore. Right. You have to fix that stuff. You have to do what you should have done 15, 20 years ago. You got to do it. Right. At some point, you got to do it. And if he's willing to give you that space and to not make it about him, oh my God, this is going to be, I know you and I see it. Yeah. Do you see it?
Yeah, I see that it's a potential out there, and I try not to, I don't want to, I just stay sort of neutral, because I know I don't want to encroach upon his free will.
No, he needs to.
I don't want to tell him what he needs.
No, but if he could do that's what it would take for him to do that would be his recovery. What it would take for him to give you this space would be unraveling his own shit. Right. And you can't take responsibility for that. That's, in fact, what you're doing is giving him the opportunity, by you taking care of yourself, essentially he's stuck with no one to rely on or to take care of, a rescue. In his mind, he's rescuing you. When in reality, he's actually rescuing himself by having you as his wife. You fulfill something he feels victimized by. Right. It's just that codependency shit is so toxic, so selfish on the whole, all of it is so selfish.
Yeah, I can see it. It's selfish and childish. It's very childish, so.
Yeah, and there's no real love in there. It's just attachments. It's not love, it's attachment. That's very different. Those are two very different things. Google them both, understand it. Attachment versus actual love and care for someone. Versus I have a need that I need something that you can provide me, versus I just like you and want to be with you. Those are two very different things.
Yeah, and that's why I knew I had to come from that space of non-codependent, so we were going to just absolutely have to go through this.
Yeah, and if you're going to take care of your own finances, you don't need him. And that might make him feel like, oh my God, I'm alone. He's going to have, he's probably miserable. But this is what's underneath. This is what was there prior to you being there. This is stuff that he needs to address. He needs to see this therapist. And I'm really hoping this therapist is wanting you guys to meet separately so she can actually work with him separate from you.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll definitely, we have to get there soon because I know he really is going to need some assistance, most likely.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, too, is it's just sad. He's innocent. He doesn't really understand this. You know what I mean? Innocent in that he's naive to what this is. Not innocent meaning he didn't participate or claim you as his, unconsciously claim you as his property. I'm not saying he didn't do that. I'm just saying he is not aware he's doing that. There's so much, like you weren't aware what you were doing. There's just, you're clueless, and it's really quite innocent. So, I love that what you're doing isn't against him. It's really about reclaiming what your needs are and reclaiming, you're taking responsibility for what your needs are.
Right.
That's actually really helpful, right? Right?
Yeah, I would say.
And in codependency, he's thinking that you're being selfish.
Right.
Because you're focusing in on what your needs are right now, and you're trying to, take responsibility for them. You're aware of what your needs are, you're taking responsibility for those needs, and that's taking away from the family in the moment. Well, and there is sacrifice that has to be done, but ultimately in the end, can you see too as a parent how much if you can do this for yourself, you're going to be able to teach this to your own children?
Yeah, and to me, it comes across as that non-grippiness. So that each person has to be able to sort of navigate life without the desire to grip. That kind of right now for me. And to learn how to make choices from their own, voice and whatnot. So that whole concept, as I'm learning, I can see how, oh my gosh, how valuable that is.
Oh, it's so amazing. Well, because now you're developing competence in yourself. Like, I am capable. That is such an essential part of self-esteem. Is the feeling that I can handle it, even if it doesn't work out. Even if I don't get, again, you remove the fantasy overreach, that I'm capable of, in the presence of now, what's going on now, I can handle what I can handle. And if there's something I can't handle, I'm okay with that. So one of the things to just observe what you also are giving yourself when you go into that space, like you can feel the fear come up, and you're like, no, I got to go back in. You have to give yourself grace that whatever happens, we can sit here and say, oh, hopefully in the end, let's talk about a fantasy. Your husband goes, oh my God, I didn't know. Oh my God, and everything's going to be great, and he's going to raise his level of awareness, and he's going to become independent, and he's going to give you independence. You're going to both be independent, and you're going to love each other, and it's going to be fabulous.
Right.
You got to give yourself grace, right? That it might get ugly. He might not be in that space. You're moving into a space of independence and, functional. You want to be functional in a relationship, and he might be like, screw you. You're ruining this. You're ruining that. Even though, he might leave and create a horrible, horrible split up because you're no longer his property, so, but you have to do this, you have to be giving yourself grace to be okay with that. Can you see where my fear is this, but I got to go into what needs to happen. And if he can't handle that and he wants to blow this up, I have to be okay with that for me to recover.
Yeah, and the way it kind of came across in my mind is that idea of your own, self-will. Whatever, I have to give him that... the
freedom to make his own decisions about how he's going to respond.
To make his own decision. I can't So that idea that you can never make a soul choose a certain way. You can just give them maybe some guidance and then let them go to whatever their next step is.
You got it. This
right
was
for them, and trust that that's right for their soul to go in that direction.
Even if it's, ends your relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was like me saying to my husband, I have to leave. I'm not going to stay here. I love you. I don't want to get divorced, but I'm going to leave. And me allowing him to then make his choices versus clutching onto, no, we're going to be together. We're going to work it out. No, if he doesn't want to be with me because of this decision, or because he's paranoid, or because he doesn't trust me, or because whatever, I have to let him have that. That's his course. That's his journey. That's his karma. He's going to have to figure that out. And if our relationship parts at some point, I am willfully giving myself the grace and him the grace for this to be, if it is meant to be, it'll work out, because we actually care and love about each other. If it's not, it's going to naturally it's not going to resolve, because he's not willing to be independent with me. So you do have to give him that freedom, because he needs to figure this out on his own end.
Yeah.
What if he doesn't? What do you think's going to happen in his next relationship with someone else?
Right.
He'll repeat his history.
Keep going.
He'll repeat it again
until he's ready to. Because I don't think that you can really escape what's the good path. You can deviate as many times as you like, but eventually, I believe, maybe through lifetimes, but you learn how to choose what's more not business-centered, basically.
Well, you're going to suffer. You're going to suffer at some point to where you have to let go of some of this stuff. You have to let it go.
What was important for me also to get to a place where I wasn't bashing him with others, because I didn't want to, I don't know if you say create that bad karma, but all of that drama, I had to feel like I could move forward.
Yeah, well, this is
how to give everyone grace
and having compassion and seeing that that's why I said he's innocent, really, if you look at it.
Right.
There's a lot of innocence going on here and that's because he's just not aware. He doesn't have a relative perspective to see. He's not outside his perspective to have a relative awareness around it. He's inside it, so he doesn't have those edges. So he's ultimately innocent. That's what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So that's giving him compassion and wiggle room and understanding why he would be so paranoid, and start to grip a little bit more, and start to be the paranoia you could have compassion for while it's occurring. So he could, him being upset at me. Oh, that's so understandable. It's really forgivable.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, yeah, of course. I made his marriage bad, right?
Yeah. He's funny. He says some funny things, but I know he's just...
Yeah, it's understandable. He's in pain. He's in a lot of pain, and it's a lot easier to place blame on others. It really is.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, I don't want to downgrade. I know he's so scared right now, and and he's gonna have to find that place inside of him, which is his own journey. So I do, hope that and I think that's the part about not playing God, because then when you say, "Oh, I'll help you,"
you're playing God.
You essentially go, "Oh, I'll play God." No, you're gonna have to find your own connection. So that kind of made me, or helped me to. That's when that part comes in for me, the not playing God, and realizing that that's what you're doing when you're trying to control things.
Yeah, well, that's your aspect of the codependency. That's you being the rescuer, right?
Yes.
And you have to go, hold on a second, but that's where I'm miserable.
Right.
That's what so when you look at it from a distance, you can see, well, the benefit I got out of that was I felt needed, I felt wanted, and it actually gave me a sense of like I'm being appreciated. Like you can look at what you got out of it, to why you were drawn to it, and you can go, okay. See, and have compassion for how easy it is to get sucked into that type of relationship when you're not feeling, when you have those vulnerabilities in yourself, when you have those beliefs within yourself or those thoughts and insecurities, why that would be so gratifying. You're getting high off of it, you're literally getting high off of codependency.
Like that. Yeah.
The illusion of love or chasing some concept. And it can be gratifying. It's no different than chasing a thinner body and the concept of thin supremacy. You really believe that the dieting that you're doing is actually going to help you. So you take something that is really kind of going against our nature, that's actually negatively impacting our brains and minds and our relationship with food, and you're promoting it as beneficial. When in reality, it is just wreaking havoc on your relationship with food. Right?
Right.
You don't see it because you're not really questioning the high you're getting from the idea of being thinner. You're not seeing it. So for you and him, you can go, well, it was very similar in that same way of relating to each other, is that we had this idea of marriage, the idea of family, and it was just super toxic and codependent. You never really saw that.
You're getting high on the idea.
Yeah, that you're chasing, even though your current state of being in reality is very toxic, very codependent.
Right.
And it's actually, no one should work that hard. That's ridiculous. If you have to work that hard, I don't know if I really want. Yeah. Right, like I was saying, he shouldn't have to pay for all this stuff for you to be happy.
Right.
And
I tried to explain to him that basically our family is built on a faulty foundation currently, and our relationship is the foundation, and that's why we have to not be together, not be codependent, go to the marriage counseling, because we have to get the foundation if we are going to build like something that's not like it is now. So,
dude, I am so pumped right now. Holy shit. This is super awesome.
This has been the biggest week of my life, I think. It's just been like every day, I feel like I'm growing so quickly.
Yeah.
And everything's happening quickly, but like I'm able to stay on top of it kind of and be like balanced. And every day kind of requires like a new like lesson or something that's coming up to kind of master or
you're practicing.
And now it's fast. It's feel like it's
well, and would you say that as you're practicing being present and being integrous, because being integrous is really important. So you're just telling yourself the truth. You're aligning your integrity to be of good. There's nothing malicious. That's so important because that's a guide, right?
Yeah.
That's your integrity. That's like the truth of your heart. You're allowing that and staying true to that, not being a victim, don't going that route where you're persecuting him or whatever. Thank God you're not there. That's such a distraction, right? But you stay true to that integrity, that as you do that, it becomes like, this is how you should just stay and be forever. Just be present, be real.
Part of that's for me, because I've seen like other women who can be maybe more like blaming, that whole thing, was that I really, on my personal journey, had the opportunity to attempt to fill this hole with like whatever financial, whatever material things I thought I needed. And for years, I chased things to fill this hole. And I know in just 100,000% that nothing is going to fill that hole for me.
But you.
Because I still hear people say things like, well, if somebody bought me a lobster dinner, everything would be fine. I was like, oh, well, maybe you should
try that.
someone to buy your lobster dinner.
And let's just see how long that fine lasts. Exactly. Because it's like you're chasing some idea of this. It's not a real thing. It doesn't fulfill. It's not a physical problem. So how is it a physical? If it's not a physical problem, a physical solution isn't going to do anything. So eating lobster is physical. That's a physical thing. So what is
just all these things I was chasing, like the homeschool school, or I have so many art supplies. I've got so many things that I just thought if I had this certain thing, like, it was going to be great.
Can you see why he would want to buy you stuff? Because he's been conditioned to think that's what you want. He is just not aware that you're aware now of that, and how it's gonna come across potentially as rejection. It is. Yeah. So you've got to be able to verbalize this. Maybe you wait until you get into counseling to talk about it.
Yeah, I do feel like that. Yeah, we need to do that.
Because you'll have someone to mediate and help express it so he doesn't take it personal. To be able to go, I feel like, you need to be able to say that to the counselor, what you just said to me.
Okay, yeah.
I felt like, I just, again, it's like codependency shit. It's not just with people. It's with belief systems. You can be codependent with, again, body image. That's the main thing with eating disorders. You're codependent with the body image, and it relies on this dieting aspect. That is what's causing this issue with food. Can you see why it's so confusing? People think the issue's with food. They see the issue with food. I have issues with food. They're not looking at underneath that as a restriction, a diet. Whether you're restricting or not, you still believe you should. The shame involved with that. Underneath that is this idea you should be thin and you're not, and you need to fix it, or you're thin and need to stay thin and you can't gain weight. Underneath that is this feeling of inadequacy that you're codependent with the body image to fulfill you.
Yeah, and I think for me it was like when that fears came up, part of it was always wanting to run away from it and actually going, no, I'm going to go straight towards it.
I'm going to go and I'm going to look at it.
And really bad, I took that place of authenticity and just stabilized down and been like, nope, so that there was that having to sit for a couple days even.
And expose yourself. Well, what you're doing is you're exposing yourself to what you've always thought you couldn't handle. You're exposing yourself to what you thought prior that you couldn't handle. So you always hid from it, suppressed it, denied it, avoided it, right? Prevented it, defended yourself from it. All those mechanisms to cope with the feelings that you had that you couldn't handle it. So being able to face those fears, even if you don't have a sense of handling it, the willingness to just sit and expose yourself, even with this feeling of inability. So it's like going into the bear's cave. The willfulness to expose yourself is so courageous. It just is courage. That's all you have is courage. You have nothing but courage. That in and of itself opens you up to awareness. Because now you can actually look at what you're afraid of. You're not making an assumption. You're actually looking at, can I handle being alone? Can I handle getting an apartment? And all of a sudden, does it feel scary anymore?
Well, and it was funny because that fear, I feel like, flipped around into action. So instead of being fear or angry or whatever, it was like, as soon as it kind of flipped, I noticed that I started being okay with action, and then I also noticed.
Can you pause a second? Yes. What you're describing are the lowest of lower states of consciousness, which is paralysis and hiding and shrinking. You come up that levels of consciousness. You go up into, there's fear, and then there is desire, and then there is, anger, and then there's pride, and then you go into courage. So you kind of transitioned into courage. Courage is where people start to, you can start fighting, right? So the lower states of survival, if you want to think about it, are broken into two parts. There's hiding and running away, and then there's fighting, anger, resentment. You have enough energy at this point to be like, fuck you, you're going to fight. You just surpass that one. Courage means the courage to be autonomous. See, the fighting is still the codependency aspect of it. I'm angry at you. I need you to change for me. You're not there. You went into complete and total independence. So you went from pretty far down to you're moving up. Courage to be independent. Courage to be open to, and to be, I'm capable of this not working out. I'm capable. Even if I don't know what that is, I know in the moment things are occurring, I can handle it. That's what you're describing. And you're right. You do end up being very energized. As you move up, you will notice you do have more energy. Your brain is starting to function a little different too. You'll notice that your processing is a little more clear, less hazy, less confusing.
Oh, yeah. I was in a bad fog.
You probably don't have headaches anymore. I was going to say tired and headaches. Are those gone?
Yeah, the headaches are starting to go away. So I did notice that's been kind of recent because I'm definitely coming out of probably very foggy states.
Well, it's very toxic physically too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
well,
I was like physically sleepy, and I had to be like, okay. And then
you're de-energized.
kind of walked through that paralysis, through everything to get the courage, but
well, the courage you
part of that
you
was
sit there.
Intuition, just to stop being tired, like get up and do something. Like I had to kind of like push myself to get to that place, but
you know what that had to have required you to believe that there's something better.
Yes, and you know what for me that is knowing deep down who I am and who I'm not. And I realized that a lot of the patterns I developed that were codependent when because at first I was shrinking away from the mirror. Like I was like, oh, I don't even like this person I've become. And I was looking at it, and part of that wanted to just hide and then be nice to people, let's say, because I was still didn't want to like own it. And I was like, and then I got to the place where I was like, that's actually not who I am. I know who I really am. Mm-hmm. I'm not that person.
I'm not going to do it anymore.
Is, my environment those are bad habits. I have to let that go and just speak from that authenticity. But to get there, I did have to really hold on to that idea of like, I know who I really am, and this isn't me. So, I had to. That was kind of a thing, part of the training.
Yeah, courage. The courage to just tell the truth. Yeah. And the courage to face those fears that you didn't think you could handle. Again, you just had courage. You didn't really do anything. You just sat there and let them be. That takes courage.
Yeah.
And built into that courage is the actual act of handling it. By sitting there with those emotions, you are in effect handling them. Just by sitting there.
Right.
Whereas before, you wouldn't even face them, so there's no handling it. You're codependently handling your fear of them to get rid of it. That's a lot of work.
Yeah. Okay.
See what I mean? Yeah. So by having courage to sit there, you're in effect truthfully handling the emotion. By just sitting with it. Letting it exist there. You never had done that before. Ever.
No. Because I think you do need to know how to disassemble it, basically, consciously, to be aware of it and see it from like that observer point of view. So
how can you do that if you're never facing it?
Basically, just disassemble it, basically.
Well, yeah, you have to face it to get there.
Yeah.
You have to have the courage to let it come in.
I see.
For you to go, oh, that's what this is about. That's no big deal. Whereas before, you were afraid of it, so you never really were open to understanding it. You just, and the fear ultimately of those emotions are, I can't handle it. I can't handle it. I can't be alone. I can't. So you won't look at it. Because the belief is that you cannot handle it. You are weaker than that. There is a sense of complete and total weakness. And the willingness, again, when you said I just had to sit there and do nothing and it was let these feelings come in and just be with them, that right there is in effect an act of courage that allows you to be with those emotions even though you feel like they're going to kill you, and from there awareness occurs.
Right.
So that willingness to go, and the thing about it is, what it takes to face these emotions is humility. Can you see how a lot of people get stuck with, oh, poor me, I have to feel this way, I have to be ugly and fat and alone and no one's going to like me. Can you see how you're positioned to cowering, you're feeling sorry for yourself? Can you see how you're not facing those emotions? You're actually going into fight. You don't want to. You're pissed, right?
Right.
That's not courage.
Okay.
That's not courage.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. So at that point, you're fighting them.
Yeah, you're pissed.
When you're right. Okay.
Yeah. So you kind of go through pride. You go through that victim, martyr, poor me. I'm going to have to be alone. I'm going to be divorced. People aren't going to like me. Those are your fears, and you're pissed off about them because you still think you can't handle it. But if you surrender that, even, no. Because I'm miserable where I'm at. So in relation to the misery of running, I'm actually getting a gift by having these things. I can't afford to be a victim or a martyr. Can you see where people get real stuck right there?
Yeah, and I can see even that fear of loneliness, especially when you think you've achieved something.
Yeah.
And then you think you've got some kind of prize that was given up and never be like,
You got it. You think you're not alone, but you're really actually alone and miserable doing all this shit. Yeah, you're right.
And
So
I believe the fear of loneliness was for a long time seemed to really be one of those things that grip you. And then I definitely was like, you know what? Yeah, just
I'd rather be alone.
Maybe I'll be alone and he'll find some hot woman.
And wouldn't that be
like,
amazing?
I gave up, but I'm still going to be like, you know what? I'm going to do that.
Well, because you're getting relief from this toxic environment. So it's almost like, which one's worse? I can't do it anymore. And so you end up, that's where a lot of people transcend the victim role because they get relief. They can see it is going to be relieving for me if I'm willfully surrendering this. Of course, it's not like that crisp and clean and rainbows and gold. You know, you're actually willfully ending it, to get there.
I also know that I've got better things going on ahead of me. I may not have that thing, but there's maybe this job that's going to be super exciting, or maybe there's going to be something else. Like, I'm not going to be alone doing nothing.
No, and you don't need someone else to fulfill you. And again, let's not put it all into a job. I just want to make sure you're not transferring the issue into a codependency with a work. So I'm going to prove myself with a job. I've had other clients that have done that. We got divorced, and then I was like, I'm going to be super successful to prove that I don't need it, but now you're codependent with your job. So just be aware that you're not seeing how to compensate, because the other part of this that we have to be okay with, that you have to actually accept, is that he's going to badmouth you. He might not.
He might, right.
Yeah, and people are going to think you're a slutty whore, you're sleeping around. They're going to be told this is the worst case scenario. And again, I'm not saying he's going to do that, but you need to be prepared to be okay. Yeah. To just be okay that they can think what they want. Only you really understands what you're doing, and he is clearly not understanding it. So he is nothing but his own thoughts to control right now. Yeah. And what he's more than likely going to use thoughts that make him feel better about it. It might be to put you in a position of wrong so that he feels right. And you know what? You're going to have to surrender to that. This is like, go into the reality of how this might work out. You know your integrity is aligned. You know you're not being malicious. This isn't about anti-him. This is about developing your own sense of ability. So anything that comes out of this, you just have to surrender to. People are going to make fun of you. One of the things that I had to surrender to was my fear of, and this was a huge one, fear of embarrassment. I'm going to be embarrassed. People are going to find out that I'm not that I am not what they thought I was. I'm not that. And they promoted that. So by me not being that, I am now inferior, and I would feel embarrassed. And I remember thinking, but the embarrassment, once you come out of the closet as a real, truthful human being, it's that one time. And the people who want to mock you, put you down, think you're inferior, I knew for me, I'm not willing to sacrifice my life anymore for that. I don't want them to have a moment of gratification by me supporting their belief systems. I'd rather just be real, then have the cognitive dissonance for that moment. And then I'll never have to defend that again. It is what it is. So I have a moment of embarrassment, a moment of exposure to what is really going on here. And I don't need to defend myself. I don't need to have an explanation for why I'm doing what I'm doing so that they're okay and give me approval for it. I don't need it. I don't want it. I'm just going to let myself be truthful, and they can have their own thoughts to think whatever they want about it. I'm not going to defend myself. I'm not going to sit there and say, that's not true. I know. Because then you're actually saying, I need your approval first before I can do what I need to do for me.
And I can remember how absolutely miserable it was to live in that state of trying to keep everyone's approval.
Oh, God, it's right there. It was right there. It was like 2 weeks ago for you.
Right, I know. When we first started talking, I was like, I'm definitely afraid of everyone's opinion. And at that point, I actually was.
Yes.
Now when I see where I'm talking from now, I can see how miserable I was, but I don't know why.
Right, and why you would be so attached to the idea that by controlling your weight or your body, that feels like it's just you. That's the thing. And this is what I think, I know there's a few really amazing articles on eating disorders and social acceptance, that what happens when you're feeling out of control in your environment, which is really what codependency is, especially since you're the one that's being held hostage and you're holding yourself to it. Keep in mind, you held yourself in it. You're going to try to find some sense of autonomy, and it's really common that people go to belief systems like religion or body image, because it gives you this sense that it's my choice, it's my body, no one else can do this, it's mine. But in reality, it's not yours, because you're going to a system that is telling you what exactly to do with your body, what you should look like, how you should be eating.
Of feeling like I'm in control of my body.
And you're not.
Like I remember actually.
Yeah. You're in control of the choice. It's my choice. That's great. But it's really not, because you're choosing what someone else is telling you to do with your body, because that's what's approvable to the masses. So that thin supremacy, it is something people don't notice. They think it is my control. I'm doing this for me, but you're actually not, because you're using socially controlled concepts that are given to you by an authority. So the authority now is still not yours. You think you have authority, but you don't. And that's where things go unnoticed. That's where it becomes very pervasive. And that's where the brainwashing aspect of this is huge. You don't even know that when you said this is mine and you internalized it, that now you are under the control of the diet industry.
I like that. And that's like false free agency versus true free agency.
Correct.
And I feel like in general, that's just kind of like, even if you looked at, let's just say the political scene does the same thing. So
yes, they do.
Feel free to say, oh, I'm a Republican, I'm this or another. By the end of the day,
you're not.
You're choosing.
You just subscribe to a new set of religious standards or dogma that is conforming, and it is usually radicalized. Yeah, you got it. It's like, okay, just. It's everywhere. You got it. And the most common ones are politics and religion. Those go hand in hand. Those are the same, actually, when you think about it. The other thing is moral compass. What is that about? What is deciding that? Who's deciding that? Well, usually it's religion. And those are supposed to be separated. But unfortunately, right now, they're not. They're super married. And then there's like body image.
What you buy. Like if you
intellect.
Go to the store and look at like Tom's of Maine toothpaste is still owned by Crest, so you think you're making a choice to buy something natural, but you're actually still supporting the same thing. This, not saying maybe it's fine to support the same thing.
It is. Who cares? But
the thing is that they make you think that you're choosing this, but at the end of the day, if you looked at the companies, you'd see it's the same. So anyway, I thought that was interesting in the sense of the free agency.
You have
wherever you shop, you're still supporting the same stuff, basically.
Yeah, if you're about that, if that's your concept, like, does it really matter what business?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Right, but if you're going this and that, the key is not becoming anti. Our goal is not to be anti-body image. It serves a purpose. It really does.
Yeah,
sure. The goal is to see that for you, it really isn't what you it wasn't free will. That ultimately the goal here is that you have as most free will as you're consciously aware of. Right? Because we're all conditionable. We're all brainwashed. That's how it works. We can't get rid of that part of our desire to blend into the background. That's part of our species. We want to blend.
Right.
That's okay. Go buy your goddamn Colgate, okay?
Right.
Who cares? Just it.
Yeah, no, I see.
But to not become it, to not become it. So if you become anti, you're becoming it. You're becoming against it. So versus saying it serves a purpose for people who are in that space, and it is for some people a betterment. So it serves a purpose. Religion serves a purpose. Radicalism serves a purpose. Religious and political radicalism serves a purpose. So people who get in that are eventually going to learn something from it. Should we say it's bad if they're going to get something out of it? Your codependency served a purpose.
Yeah.
So we can sit here and be anti-codependency, but in reality, it was a stepping stone for you to get to this place. You needed to do it hardcore to some radical level for you to become aware that it has downsides. There's downsides to it.
Yeah, exactly. And so society set up to kind of help everybody in a sense.
Yeah, and people, and there's a lot of people out there who live in reality like you and I do. They don't have these psychological problems. How is that? Well, they don't necessarily take it so serious because they don't need it. They acclimate to it because that's part of being safe. But at the same time, they're willing to break out of it too. There's a persona in there that they're allowing to really express themselves and to navigate their lives within reality. Within reality. This is super important because our goal isn't to take you out of reality. The reality of it is that we live in a system that is highly codependent and highly narcissistically driven.
Right.
Okay, very self-centered, very superior. The United States is the best country in the freaking planet. That is so narcissistic, very separative. That's, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it's like, well, here we are. We can, whatever. You have to be able to live in it and allow it to be. So again, it's kind of like with your kids. The goal is that they are not separated from reality. They need to live in reality and get a sense of capacity. Removing them from reality and giving them a false sense of capacity, that's like putting them in a vacuum.
Right, yeah.
When they get into reality, how are they going to have awareness? How are they going to have the sense of capacity? How are they going to have discernment? That's a big one. If you don't get in reality, where's your discernment going to develop? So what you just learned is discernment. It took you this long and this far and that much suffering to have discernment around what codependency is and where the downside is. And where some people want you to take ownership of their problems, and you're going to now have discernment around, I'm not going to do that for you. I hope you can figure that out. I have compassion for your sorrow and your sadness and your poor me story because you feel that, but you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
See how that works?
Yeah, and it's funny because I lived in Italy for a while, and I actually really enjoyed other cultures just as an interest. But when I would go tell Americans, it was always like, blah blah blah.
Well, you're in the South.
So
just keep in mind you're in the South. That attitude is there, not everywhere. Just so you know.
Yeah,
and you're in very red.
Yeah,
you're in very conservative, very red, very ignorant areas where it's more radicalized. See, I'm over in the West, and I live in a red state, and there's some areas of radicalizing here, and it's getting worse, obviously, with our current radicalism.
Right.
But I have a lot of friends who are Republican who would never think like that because they're more open-minded.
Yeah.
They love and appreciate going to other places.
Right, yeah, and so it was funny because then when I came back, I did have to kind of learn how to like this culture because I actually kind of enjoyed other cultures maybe a little better, but that was just my own personal preference, but I love my own culture. I'm not saying I don't like it.
No, you give it grace. You give it grace. When I lived down south, it took me a while. Yes, you just saying what I was saying. You learn the culture. It's like, I don't want to put down the South because there's history that makes sense of why it is the way it is. Yeah. And it's so forgivable. It's understandable and it's forgivable, and the the real racism that goes on both sides. It's terrible racism everywhere.
Yeah.
Everybody, but there's history that backs it. And then there is drama triangle. The whole drama triangle exists, and the codependency with Bible thumping, and there's so much. But anyways, it's very forgivable, and you can just let it be. Just like you go to another country and let it be. We can let our own country be. We don't have to be anti.
Yeah.
You can see it for what it is and let it be.
Yes. Yeah, and coming from that place that you can